His wife said, "His best friend tasted me, and for the first time in years I felt like a real woman again, and his revenge was brutal. His best friend tasted me, and for the first time in years I felt like a real woman again. Honestly, I wished I married Derek. His everything, Ryan is not." Those were the careless words Tracy whispered to her friends one afternoon with a laugh that could cut a glass, unaware her husband was standing in the hallway, listening to every syllables of betrayal. She had no idea that the man she just humiliated has orchestrated a brutal revenge in infidelity history. What happened will make you to question everything you think you know about love, marriage, betrayal, and cold revenge. Viewers, have you ever overheard something that shattered every illusion of love you ever believed in? What would you have done in his place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The afternoon sun fell lazily over suburban Houston, painting the streets in soft amber light. Ryan Walker's Tesla glided into the driveway earlier than expected. A client's system audit had been postponed, buying him a quiet hour before evening. He thought he'd surprise his wife, Tracy, maybe share dinner, talk about the weekend. He carried the calm precision of a man who spent his life inside codes, firewalls, and encrypted data. Nothing ever startled Ryan, until that day. As he stepped inside, he heard laughter ripple through the hallway. 3 voices, female, warm, high-pitched, carefree. His wife's voice was unmistakable, smooth, confident, a tone that once wrapped around his name like silk. He slowed near the doorway, shoes still on, briefcase in hand. The scent of vanilla candles drifted from the living room. Music played low in the background. Jazz, the kind she loved. He smiled faintly, imagining her face lighting up when she saw him. But then, he froze. One of her friends, a tall brunette with a teasing laugh, said, "Tracy, you've been glowing lately. What's your secret? Don't tell me you finally dragged Ryan out of that home office." Tracy's voice floated back, dripping with amusement. "Oh, please. Ryan, he's the definition of predictable. Let's just say," she said with a cruel, lazy laugh, "Ryan's best friend tasted me, and I finally felt like a woman again. Sometimes I wonder what life would have been if I'd married him instead." The room erupted. Wine clinked against crystal, laughter filled the air, and his wife's voice, the same one that used to whisper "I love you," sliced through him like cold steel. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He watched the shadows of their laughter dance on the wall and wondered how long it had been a lie. Tracy's voice came again, softer this time. "Ryan's sweet, but he's too structured. Always work, code, security systems, encryption, routines. I just want to feel alive, you know?" The air left his lungs. Every muscle in his body went still. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. His face hardened, but his eyes stayed calm. Her friends gasped, then laughed in disbelief. One of them whispered, "Tracy, stop. You're terrible." She giggled. "I'm serious. With Derek, everything felt alive. With Ryan, it's always work, security codes, laptops, schedules. I'm living with a robot, not a husband." The laughter that followed was cruel, light, careless, ignorant of the knife it twisted in his chest. Ryan stayed hidden in the hallway, still as stone, listening. Every word was an incision. Then the topic changed. They shifted to hair appointments, new shoes, a co-worker's wedding. The danger passed. Ryan exhaled silently, forcing his expression into the calm neutrality of a man who'd just walked in from work. He stepped forward, smile effortless. "Hey, ladies," he said warmly, voice even. "Didn't know we had company." Tracy's eyes widened, then softened into a smile. "Oh, honey, you're home early." He set his briefcase down beside the couch. "Meeting got canceled," he said easily, greeting her friends one by one. "You must be Amy, right? And Jessica? Tracy talks about you all the time." The women exchanged glances, unaware of the storm that had just passed inches away. Everything about Ryan looked normal. Steady voice, polite grin, no trace of suspicion. Tracy brushed his arm affectionately. We were just catching up. Girl talk. Sounds fun, he said, grabbing a bottle of sparkling water from the minibar. Didn't mean to interrupt. Her friends smiled and continued chatting. Ryan stayed for a few minutes, said the right things, even laughed once or twice. His tone never wavered. His hands didn't shake. To anyone watching, he was the picture of calm domestic normalcy. But inside, something fundamental had broken, and the pieces were already aligning into something dangerous. When the guests finally left an hour later, Tracy kissed him lightly and asked, "How was your day, babe?" He smiled. Uneventful. She didn't notice that he didn't touch her back. Later that night, when she fell asleep beside him, her breathing soft and steady, Ryan lay awake staring at the ceiling. Betrayal replayed in his mind like a corrupted audio file, her voice looping the same words again and again. His best friend tasted me. He slid out of bed quietly and walked to his study. The room was his domain. Screens, codes, secure networks, devices blinking faintly in the dark. Before they married, he had installed an integrated security system throughout the house. Audio sensors, encrypted storage, and local backups synced to a private cloud. It was habit, precaution, protection. But tonight, it was proof. He entered the timestamp 4:03 p.m. The recording appeared instantly. He hit play. The laughter came first, then her voice. Exact, merciless, undeniable. Every syllable landed with surgical precision. When it ended, he leaned back, eyes cold, face unreadable. A cybersecurity expert's worst fear was exposure, and now his own life had become the breach. He connected to their shared iCloud account, a backup they both used for convenience. Within seconds, Tracy's synced data appeared, texts, photos, videos. The chats between her and Derek confirmed everything. The affair, the mockery, the cruelty. He read every word carefully, methodically, until there was nothing left to deny. He closed the laptop gently, exhaled once and whispered, "All right." The decision was made, not vengeance born of rage, but precision born of betrayal. A different kind of warfare had begun, and he would fight it in silence. The night passed without sleep. Ryan sat in the dark, the low hum of his workstation the only sound alive. The house, once warm with conversation, now felt like a digital vault. Quiet, airtight, sterile. The betrayal had stripped the air of oxygen but filled it with clarity. At dawn, he brewed coffee with the precision of a ritual. Steam rose, numbers scrolled across his monitor. Network traffic, system diagnostics, traces of the life he controlled with logic. The discipline that made him a master of cybersecurity now became his emotional firewall. Rage was noise. Strategy was signal. Tracy emerged near 7, hair loose, silk robe drawn at the waist, unaware that the man by the counter was already miles away from her. He turned slightly, offering the same neutral smile that could hide anything. She kissed his cheek, murmured something about her schedule. He nodded once. The moment she left, he locked the door and powered up 3 screens. Evidence glowed back at him. The recording waveform, the chat logs, the images. Each file was a wound, but each wound was documentation. He archived them under mirrored backups, encrypted triple deep, stored across shadow drives. Betrayal, digitized and preserved. By 9 a.m., he showered, dressed, and left for work. The world outside carried on in ordinary color. Inside, his palette had gone grayscale. At the office, he wrote code, answered questions, smiled at jokes. Colleagues saw composure. No one saw the firewall behind it. When he came home that evening, Tracy met him at the door, all energy and chatter. She told him about traffic, lunch, a client who annoyed her. He listened, responding exactly enough. Her laughter filled the room the way static fills a speaker. Loud, meaningless. Dinner passed in practiced rhythm. She talked, he nodded. When she reached across the table to touch his hand, he let her. Her fingers felt colder than he remembered. Later, she watched television while he sat beside her with his laptop open, eyes on meaningless code. To her, he looked busy. To him, he looked invisible. Before midnight, he returned to the study and renamed the final file. Integrity Report 01. He backed it up to an external drive, labeled it by hand, and slid it into the safe behind the bookshelf. Nothing about his breathing changed. He didn't plan revenge, not yet. He planned distance, the slow, controlled extraction of self from a contaminated system. Upstairs, Tracy laughed at something on her phone. The sound carried down the hall, light and familiar, already foreign. Ryan shut off the light and sat in the dark until the monitors cooled. The silence between them had become part of the furniture, present, unmoving, ordinary. It filled the kitchen corners, floated above dinner plates, pressed between sentences that never quite connected. Ryan let it live there. Silence was discipline. He woke earlier now, before dawn, when the air still felt neutral. Coffee brewed, machines hummed, and he watched the city lights dim as morning took hold. Tracy's voice joined a little later, soft, practiced, still carrying the warmth of habit. "Want me to make breakfast?" "I already did," he said without looking up. She smiled at the neat plate waiting for her, a peace offering she didn't realize was an obituary. He watched her leave for work, heels clicking against tile. When the door shut, he stood for a long moment, waiting for the quiet to settle back into shape. Then he reached for his jacket, stepped outside, and drove toward downtown. The law office sat on the 23rd floor of a glass building that caught sunlight like a mirror. The receptionist recognized his name from the appointment file and led him into a narrow room that smelled of paper and calm. The lawyer arrived exactly on time, a man in his 40s with a voice that never rose or fell. "I want to file for divorce," he said. "Grounds. Adultery." The lawyer opened a folder, ready to take notes. Ryan continued, voice low and even. "Everything you need is in there. Audio recordings, message logs, timestamps, photographs. Chain of custody intact. I don't want alimony, property, or reconciliation. Just finality." The man nodded once, plugged in the drive, scanned a few files, then closed it. "You'll hear from me soonest," he said. Ryan shook his hand, turned, and left. The drive home was slow, the streets bright and indifferent. Music played low, instrumental, controlled, free of lyrics that might intrude with feeling. At home, he resumed routine. Emails, system updates, code deployments. Every motion deliberate, stripped of noise. In the afternoon, he cooked rice, left a portion for her, and ate alone. When Tracy came back, she talked about office plans, about how one of the executives mentioned expansion. Her voice bounced easily against his quiet. "You're distracted again," she said finally. "Is work that bad?" He smiled faintly. "It's always bad. That's why they pay us." She rolled her eyes, kissed his cheek, and went upstairs to shower. He cleaned the table, wiped the counters, washed the plates. Every action erased evidence of existence. Later that night, when she reached for him in bed, he turned slightly away, pretending to adjust his pillow. She whispered his name, soft and uncertain. He murmured something vague about exhaustion. The air settled back into stillness. Morning broke clean in gold across Houston. Tracy was still in bed when Ryan buttoned his shirt, slipped on his watch, and stepped outside. The air felt lighter than it should. He drove without music, steering through the slow rush of early traffic until he reached the small cafe tucked between an old bookstore and a barber shop. The man was already there, sitting near the window, stirring coffee that had long gone cold. He had called him earlier to book an appointment with him. He is a professional hacker. "You said urgent," the man murmured. Ryan set a small envelope on the table. Inside were company details, network diagrams, and a transfer slip with no return trail. 24 hours, Ryan said. "Full paralysis. I don't need data. I need impact." The man looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "You'll have it." Ryan finished his coffee, stood, and left. He didn't look back. The day unfolded with its usual rhythm. He showed up at work, replied to messages, attended a call about a new contract. No one looking at him could sense the countdown ticking beneath his calm. At exactly 10 o'clock, the operation began. Derek Worth Group's central site flickered, then froze. Within minutes, payment gateways jammed, internal systems stuttered, and transactions stopped mid-execution. Their IT team noticed almost instantly and launched a full-scale defense. But the attack was unlike anything they had seen. Precise, relentless, everywhere, at once. By noon, panic had spread through the building. Phone lines crackled, servers restarted, departments shut down. The board called emergency meetings. Derek himself stormed into the control room, tie loose, shouting over the noise. The technical team fought with everything they had: firewall isolations, manual overrides, backup routes. But the infiltration kept shifting shape, dodging each countermeasure. As hours turned into night, the system kept bleeding. Automated transactions failed, client data froze, and pending settlements expired. Traders could not execute positions, suppliers could not access funds, and clients could not withdraw. Every minute carried invisible loss. By midnight, the company's network was a maze of broken commands. The infiltration didn't stop. It adapted. Derek's voice echoed through the hallways as he demanded updates, but each report sounded the same. "We're trying. It's still spreading." Outside, the world carried on. Lights, traffic, laughter, unaware that inside those glass walls, millions were disintegrating. By the early hours of the morning, the financial bleeding had become visible. Partners began asking questions. Rumors whispered through trading floors. Journalists picked up murmurs of a massive system failure. At exactly 10 o'clock the next morning, 24 hours after the strike began, the infiltration stopped. Servers came back online, screens blinked to life, systems restored one by one. Relief turned to horror when the finance department released the damage report. Over $100 million gone. Losses traced across every department, missed contracts, broken trades, terminated partnerships. Clients withdrew, investors demanded full refunds, and lenders froze credit lines. The stock opened lower than anyone thought possible. Derek stared at the report in disbelief, the color draining from his face as his empire cracked beneath him. The headlines came fast. Derek Worth Group suffers 24-hour cyber catastrophe. Investors withdraw in panic. Ryan sat in his office, reading the news on his tablet, a faint reflection of the red tickers glowing in his eyes. His phone buzzed once, a message from the man he met at the cafe. Done. Payment confirmed. He deleted it, leaned back, and exhaled slowly. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual noise. Inside, a man who'd lost everything once had quietly taken it all back, without leaving a fingerprint. The strike had lasted exactly 24 hours. By the time it ended, Derek Worth was finished. Monday arrived bright, ordinary, and cruel. Tracy dressed in her best navy suit, humming softly as she pinned her hair. She didn't know her career was already over. She didn't know that the same man sitting quietly at the dining table had written the quiet end of it. Ryan read the newspaper while she gathered her purse, the same way he used to before work every morning. Nothing about him gave away the truth, that the night before he'd made one final call. A few strings pulled, a quiet recommendation withdrawn, and one anonymous report forwarded to the right inbox. The domino had been tipped. By 9, she was in her office downtown, greeting everyone with her usual bright tone. The firm buzzed with Monday energy. At 10, an email landed from HR. "Please see us before noon." She barely noticed it. She had reports to print, calls to make, plans for her birthday dinner. At 11, her manager stopped by, hands in pockets, face unreadable. "You might want to head down now," he said. She frowned, confused, but obeyed. The HR room was small, too bright, smelling faintly of disinfectant. A woman she barely knew sat behind the desk with a folder open in front of her. "Tracy," she began, voice too careful. This isn't personal. There's been a compliance review. Your name came up in a flagged transaction. It's company policy to proceed with immediate separation until the matter is cleared. The words blurred. Tracy tried to explain, to ask questions, to demand logic. But the decision had already been made hours ago. Her access revoked, her name replaced. They let her gather her belongings under watch. Her co-workers kept their heads down, whispering after she passed. The birthday decorations her team had prepared for later that week were still in their boxes, a cheap banner that would never hang. Outside, the Texas heat pressed against her chest. She sat in her car for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel, too stunned to start the engine. When she finally got home, Ryan was in the study, calm, focused, typing something that didn't matter. She stood in the doorway, clutching the folder like it could explain itself. "They fired me," she said. Her voice cracked on the word. "A week before my birthday." He turned, expression steady, eyes unreadable. "I'm sorry," he said, tone smooth as glass. "What reason did they give?" "Compliance review," she whispered. "Something about client files. But I've never—" She stopped. He was already looking past her as if her words were wind against a closed window. When he finally spoke, it was almost gentle. "These things happen," he said. "You'll find something else." She nodded slowly as if believing him might make it hurt less. He turned back to his desk. She sat on the couch for a long time after that, the termination letter open in her lap, the silence thick. She didn't cry. She just stared at the walls of the home her husband had built, unaware she had just become another part of his revenge, another quiet ruin in a plan that was far from finished. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. Inside, the house held its breath. Her birthday arrived quietly, warm air drifting through the curtains. Ryan woke early, made breakfast, and told Tracy to take the day off. "You've been through enough," he said gently. "Let's celebrate you tonight." She smiled, relieved, unaware that every word from his mouth was measured. He called her parents himself, told them to come by at 7 for a surprise. He sent messages to her friends, her co-workers, and even Derek and his wife, polite, thoughtful invitations. It would mean a lot if you came. By evening, the house glittered. Soft jazz played in the background, the table dressed in gold and white, the air perfumed with roses and candles. Everyone greeted Tracy with warmth and laughter. She looked beautiful, radiant even, in a soft blue gown that shimmered under the lights. For the first time in days, she felt seen again, wanted, celebrated, loved. Ryan stayed close but quiet. He moved through the crowd with the grace of a man at peace, refilling glasses, giving directions to the servers, smiling at her parents like a perfect son-in-law. Only his eyes betrayed him, calm, unreadable, still. Derek arrived late, his wife on his arm, confidence wrapped around him like a suit. "Didn't expect this much, class," he said with a smirk. Ryan smiled faintly, poured him a drink, and offered a seat near the front. Tracy moved through the room, smiling too much, hiding her nerves. Her mother complimented the decor. Her father clapped Ryan's shoulder. "You did well, son." Ryan smiled faintly, poured champagne, and waited. Dinner began soft and golden. Glasses clinked, stories flowed. Ryan said little. He listened, eyes moving from face to face, expression carved from calm. When dessert arrived, he stood, tapping his glass gently with a spoon. "Before we cut the cake," he said, "I want to share something special for my wife." The room quieted instantly. Tracy's face lit up. Her parents clasped hands, expecting something tender. Ryan turned toward the small speaker system in the corner. He pressed a button on his phone. A voice filled the room, her voice, clear, unmistakable. "His best friend tasted me, and I finally felt like a woman again." The air snapped. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Someone gasped. The sound of a glass tipping and shattering on the floor broke the stillness. The recording continued, sharp, merciless, echoing through the house that was once theirs. Her laughter, her words, her betrayal. Every second stripped the room of oxygen. Tracy's mother covered her mouth. Her father's face went hard, red climbing up his neck. Derek went pale, eyes darting to his wife, then to the floor. His wife didn't move. Tracy staggered back, hands trembling. "Ryan," she whispered, voice cracking, "please." But he didn't look at her. He stood still, watching the guests instead, watching them realize, watching their faces turn. Her father rose, anger shaking his hands. "Tracy, what is this?" She couldn't speak. Her friend stared in disbelief, frozen between pity and disgust. Her mother began to cry quietly, unable to meet her eyes. Derek's wife exhaled a sound that was half sob, half fury, and turned away from her husband. Ryan let the recording play to the end, every cruel word, every confession, until silence filled the room again. Then he turned the sound off. He didn't say another word. He didn't need to. The quiet that followed was thick, living, unbearable. Tracy sank slowly into her chair, face buried in her hands, surrounded by the wreckage of her own voice. Ryan glanced at her once, expression unreadable, then turned and walked toward the hallway, leaving behind the faint hum of the speaker, and a room too stunned to move. The cake remained untouched. The candles still burned. Her birthday had just begun, and it was already over. The silence after the audio felt alive. Glasses sweated on the table, candles hissed, and no one dared to breathe. Tracy stood there, trembling, her pulse thudding loud enough for her to hear. Her mother's sobs broke the quiet first, soft, ashamed. Ryan didn't flinch. He lifted the remote again. "We're not finished." A faint click, and the television came alive once more. The first image appeared, a message thread, bright against the black background. Her name at the top, her words beneath. "You make me feel like a woman again." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Another message followed. "He's dull. You're everything he isn't." Tracy gasped. "Ryan, please." Her father slammed his palm against the table. "Enough," he barked, but Ryan's voice cut through him, quiet and sharp. "Not yet." Another photo flashed onto the screen, both kissing passionately. The next image showed them in a hotel lobby, smiling at someone's camera, their fingers brushing in the corner of the frame. Tracy's knees buckled. Her friends shifted, whispering behind their hands. Derek's wife turned, her face drained of color. She said, "Derek, you will hear from my lawyer." Derek tried to speak, but Ryan's next click swallowed his words. The next slide contains inappropriate videos and picture they both send to each other. Her mother cried out. Her father sank back in his chair, eyes hollow. Tracy screamed, clutching her head. "Stop, please stop." Ryan watched her, expression blank. "That's how it sounded when you forgot I existed," he said almost gently. He let the clip run a few seconds longer. Her laughter turned to a whisper, one word, his rival's name, and then he pressed stop. The screen froze on her face. No one spoke. Derek's wife rose slowly, shaking her head. She walked to him, stared into his pale, useless eyes, and slapped him hard enough that the sound cracked through the room. Then she turned to Tracy, tears streaking her cheeks. "You ruined 2 homes in one night." Tracy fell to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Ryan reached into his jacket, took out the brown manila envelope, and placed it beside her. "We are done, Tracy. Please sign the papers," he said. "Happy birthday." He turned to the guests, his tone returning to ice. "Thank you all for witnessing the truth." No one answered. Chairs scraped softly as people began to leave, heads down, faces blank. Ryan walked out through the same door he'd entered hours earlier, calm, silent, complete. The front door slammed behind him, and the sound lingered longer than it should have. No one moved. The projector light still glowed faintly on Tracy's face, frozen, tear-streaked, pale. Then the room exhaled all at once. Voices rose, chairs scraped, and the fragile illusion of celebration shattered completely. Derek's wife snatched her purse from the floor, eyes red, mouth trembling. "You're filth," she hissed at him, then at Tracy. "Both of you." She turned and stormed out before anyone could stop her. Derek followed, calling her name, but the door shut before he reached it. Tracy's father stood next, fists clenched at his sides, staring at his daughter like she was someone he'd never met. Her mother tried to speak, her voice breaking apart between sobs. "Tracy, how could you?" Tracy collapsed to her knees beside the chair, shaking, staring at the floor. The guests began leaving one by one. Whispers, silence, the faint clink of shoes against tile. Within minutes, the house emptied. The music had long stopped. The lights felt too bright, and the only sound left was her ragged breathing. She looked at the table, the untouched cake, the scattered plates, the envelope, divorce papers, her name printed in black ink, her entire marriage reduced to signatures. Do you think Ryan was too brutal with his revenge? If you were in his shoes, what would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.